Do that again. We'll call this meeting of Capital Program Committee to order Thursday, August 29th at 3:15-ish p.m. Present are Howard Matz, John Kitchener, Jill Deed, myself, Stephen Welch. Meetings being audio video recorded. Anything you say or share will be shown in the town's YouTube. Please add accordingly. Get a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
On your motion, John,
Aye.
Howard,
Yes.
Jill.
Aye.
There's unanimously. Public comment. There are no members of the public presence. There will be no public comment. In a motion, approve the minutes of October 12th.
So moved.
On your motion, John,
Aye.
Howard,
Aye.
Jill.
Aye.
There's unanimously. So today we're here to review requests and out here for IT and water. IT's up first. Michael, we have you down for two requests. One is replace computers and the other is the virtual server environment upgrade.
That is correct.
Do is give us an introduction on the first one. If we have any questions, we'll ask them, and then you can go to the second one.
So sure thing. So the replace town computers, this is a annual capital project fund that we routinely use up completely. It's our town computer purchases for the year. The cost has gone up this year. Main reason being is we're running into the replacement of COVID year laptops. And so as we've switched to more remote and hybrid work, since the COVID era, of course, we have switched to more laptops. Laptops routinely run anywhere between $500 to $1,000 more. And so we've simply hit that point where we need to replace a few more machines. Laptops also tend to have a 1 year shorter lifespan, which is why we've hit that fourth year mark at this point. So we're simply getting ready. Now, does this mean we're going to replace every single one of those laptops? No, but it's the bulk of them. And routinely, we're replacing anywhere between about a fifth of our computers every year. So this is just a reflection of that cost.
Thanks, Michael. Question? Jill, anything? Sorry, I can't see if the hand are raised.
Nope, I'm good.
Okay, thanks. Michael.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jill. We appreciate you having put in inventory and the capital and operating side. I just want to confirm that this is a $100,000 ask. The total cost running in the software is just a little over $1 million. So that's part of the plum update they're going to do.
Yes, they're still working on that. That was a field we attempted to add recently, so it will be fixed next week.
Gotcha. And I know you said that already. I just want to make sure as we're going through them that we identify, or can you make it simpler? Is this going to be the case for all requests until they fix it?
It will be fixed next week, so it should be the report that I add to the agenda pulls right out of Plum, so I know the information is correct in Plum, but they have said that it'll be fixed early next week.
Okay. So in another way of asking that is in the introduction, we could ignore, or we should ignore the total cost because it isn't correct until it's
Correct.
System wide. Okay.
Okay.
That solves me from having to ask that question on each request. Howard?
Howard has a question. He was looking at one of the attachments and and I think if I'm looking at this correctly, it didn't add up to 100,000. It added up to 108,000. Am I looking at the right thing?
Are you looking at the capital and operating expense?
I'm looking at a chart that doesn't have a title on it. It says computers, equipment, and then new equipment. It says fiscal 24 in investment inventory expenses.
Michael, so you have a spreadsheet and it's titled inventory expenses, capital and operating. And Howard's just pointing out that, back to the hand math, it comes in a little bit more than 100,000. Is that just a rounding matter or is there something else?
Give me 1 second. I just want to make sure I'm looking at the same spreadsheet that you guys are looking at.
I think it's the one titled FY24 inventory expenses, capital and operating.
All right, just give me two seconds here just to make sure.
Mike, I can probably answer that.
Sure.
Looking at it, it is one of the documents you provided. The bottom part of the chart is the operating. You can see the difference in the, right on the.
Oh, yeah, there it is. Yeah.
Capital and operating. So the 78,000 was capital and the 30,500 was operating. Does that help, Howard?
Yeah, but then, so if it's 78 and he's asking for 100,
So we routinely still spend, or rather still do some purchases of computers out of our operating budget. That's sort of our like emergency stuff or the brand new request that was completely unexpected. DPW is hiring an engineer and this person's going to be a remote worker. So now it's a laptop, a monitor, 2 monitors and so on. So it's additional expenses. We tend to put those additional ones in our operating line. This, however, though, like I said, is for fiscal year 26 is a reflection of the COVID era spending. So that 78 is no longer covering what it used to cover, and that's what needs to go up.
Gotcha.
so do you want to revise this fiscal 24 to be fiscal year 26 and put the right numbers in it?
I think it's, let me jump in on it, Art. Michael, it would be beneficial just, going forward, at this point, if you want to do it, so you have the spreadsheet as an exercise. If you just punch that out as FY 26 and put it in put in the more accurate numbers. So.
Okay.
And in terms of our process, we'll have an archival document that squares with the request amount. That'd probably be a bad idea. Anything else, Howard?
No, thank you.
All right, next one is the virtual server environment upgrade.
Right, so the virtual server environment, our virtual server that we put in just it's reaching its 8th year lifespan. And they typically have a lifespan of 10 years. So by the time we get to fiscal year 26, it will be well into its 9th year. We need to replace it before the end of that. It is a 2-phased system because our virtual server is actually 2 environments. There's one at our Fort Fairgrounds office and the other one is over at the water company. That's the redundant site. So everything that happens is copied over and relayed to the water company site. Should anything happen at one site or the other, everything is automatically relayed to the other site. Within minutes, our network, quote unquote, does not go down. And we have reached, unfortunately, we're nearing the end of its lifespan. This is just a reflection of costs. We're not only replacing the hardware of the virtual server environment, but also the switches that are used to manage it.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions on this one?
Yeah, I have one.
John?
Yeah, I was looking at the attached documents and they in total came to 581. And I see that, the number on the spreadsheet is 500.
Right. So there's 2 portions of that. One, we actually already have some server virtual environment funding in capital. Every couple of years, I think it's about 75,000 that we put away, and that's been for maintenance and maintaining. So we plan on using some of that to cover this cost. The other thing is that the cost is actually changing. This is a bulk, or rather the quote we have is from January, which is a purchasing cost. However, the VMware has been recently bought out by Broadcom. I believe this was February, so after we got the quote. And they are changing the licensing processing number of it. So as soon as we get a more up-to-date number, we expect the number total to essentially still be about $500,000 in total. But unfortunately, I can't give you the exact number of what the whole thing's going to cost. That being said, we are sure in our additional server virtualization funding that we already have that we can cover any sort of gap that comes up.
I'm new to this, Mr. Chair, so I don't know whether this should be really reflecting the higher number, or if that's true, if 75,000's come from somewhere else, then I'm not quite sure how you would.
So my preference My preference is typically that if there's a difference in funding, there's a difference between the cost and the capital request amount, is that it's just noted in the, notes in the introduction. And, I think what we would ask, Michael, is like with the, replace town computers, when you update that, update this, so then when we do our report, other people have access to this database, so finance committee, select board members. If they punch into this and they see a difference, are they gonna, I don't know, that's one side of it. So we wanna have consistency of information and data integrity and all that, so it's where, also just, you know, if you're counting beans, you like to have all the beans lined up in the right spot and the numbers correct, so. I think there's a little bit of that too, being numbers people, that's why we're here.
So Stephen, Howard asking the question, so the totals of the two look like they add up to about 550,000?
580.
581.
Yeah, so, so could, whatever the numbers that you're gonna give us ultimately are, the sources of funds needs to be 500 plus 80, or with the 80 being the carryover balance, or whatever the right number is. And you're gonna tell us what that carryover balance is. So that 580 less the carryover balance is what your ask is.
Yeah, so
Sure. Yeah.
specifically to do that, Michael, is just in the introduction, there's a place to explain the project. And you can make a comment there that indicates
Absolutely.
that there's a portion that is gonna be funded out of a particular line item, and you can even note that the total cost is slightly fluid because it needs to be updated from a January estimate. How's that work for you?
That works fine, yeah.
Just so you know,
I
I have
guess
a
I-
note on it. Okay,
Yeah, but I still, shouldn't the 500 though be reflected as 580?
yeah,
Yes.
that's what we're saying, yeah.
Well, no, I understand what we're gonna,
Well, no, because the, yes and no, we need, where we've always been, is we wanna know what the full number is.
Yeah.
But there's the two things, the 500,000 may not be 500,000, that number is subject to change based upon an updated estimate, number one. Number two, the portion that should reflect total cost, that should be reflected total cost, is the total cost out of an appropriation as a capital expense. So in this instance, let's keep it around numbers. Michael's got 100,000 coming out of operating. He's got 500,000 coming out of capital. The request total is 500,000.
Correct.
In
But-
this instance, if it
That's,
were a grant and it was all capital, the 600 was capital, it would be 600,000, and the notes would say a grant of 100,000.
so I'm coming from the same place John is.
Okay.
I would have put down the full 580. And I would say, but the ask is really 500 because we have 80 of a carryover balance.
I agree, because, and let me explain why, Mr. Chair, because if that 75,000 from the other source, if by the time we get there, that is suddenly not 75, it's 20 because they've used it somewhere else. You know, we need to
Mhm.
know that, wait a minute, but the ask was 580,
Right.
you know, the project cost is 580. And it's dangerous for me when we say, okay, well, let's drop the number because it's some of it is going to be funded from somewhere else. And this far away, we can't really be sure that that
Yeah.
75 is really going to.
So may I?
Yeah, go
So
ahead, but-
if in fact that the total cost comes out in reality to be 590, we wouldn't have a benchmark, a baseline to compare it to, because we would have had a 500 number there, not a 580. Similarly speaking, the reverse is true. If it was 540 and he budgeted 580 and he had a 40 savings, then we wouldn't be able to applaud him for that.
Okay, I'm gonna point out two things, actually three things. One, that the cost reflects the capital request. Michael is telling us that he is not requesting the operating side. So it would be inappropriate to my mind to include, for that reason, to include an operating cost as a capital cost, number one. Number two, the software is designed not only for us to be reviewing, it's also for finance to be utilizing as a tool when they're doing the work. So what they need to know is the actual number, and I presume that when Michael gets the update, the actual number will go into total cost. Because that's what to create a situation where Sue would have to go into every request and look at the total cost and then determine from the notes whether that's the full amount or it's more than the full amount. In this instance, because there is a totally separate, not capital expense under $50,000 for other computers. Mixing those two is not how my third point is not how we've done it in the past. If you guys want to change that, we'll put it on the agenda, we'll have the full membership vote, if we ever have full membership. But I don't want to be changing things when 3 people are in the room, or 4 people with Jill on, and then people are like, wait a minute.
I
that's
don't
not
think
how
we're
we've done it."
changing things, so I think
But I'm telling you that if
okay.
we change that to reflect 580.
you're not listening to me, Stephen.
I am.
If I can, real quick, interject here. Part of the issue that you guys come with this 580 number is that it's not actually 580. There are 2 quotes there. Sorry, real quick, just there are 2 quotes there. One is for a VX rail and the other one is for a power store, which is a traditional style. Those are 2 different types that we can choose from. Sorry, I guess they should have been made clear beforehand, was that these are 2 quotes that are so the total project cost itself will hopefully actually be under the 500,000, if that makes sense.
You mean it's either 298 or the 2?
Correct. And then there's wiggle room. Sorry, I was a little confused earlier by this 580, so it took me a little while to figure out where you guys are getting that number. My apologies on that. It's only going to be hopefully just a little over 300,000 in total. There's wiggle room for the additional cost of equipment that may need to go in that has not at this point been quoted until we can get an up-to-date and have them do a site visit and so on.
Okay, so Michael, what we need is, and we'll know, we need an updated quote to
Yeah.
the actual request, because there's a big difference between the 5 and the 3. And I will point out that the example I was using about carrying, what cost to carry was the replace town computers, which has a capital component and an operating component. So I had switched gears and that's what I was referring to. And that's what I was referring to, is that we're gonna change how we do that. So I think where we can leave this is we need updates, and we'll make notes that we'll get those. And when would you anticipate, Michael, reasonably that you would actually have updated quotes?
I'm literally waiting on any day or week. We are waiting on Broadcom essentially to make their changes so the vendor can come to us and tell us what those changes are. So we were expecting it at beginning of August. It did not happen. So I'm hoping it's September, October, the latest. I don't know for certain, unfortunately.
This
Okay.
is,
And just to be clear, in our understanding, with respect to the replace town computers, you're updating the capital side of that cost for us.
Yes,
Update both, but the capital side is what we're concerned about. And then with respect to the virtual server environment, we'll be looking at a cost that is closer to one of the 2 quotes, not the combination of the 2.
correct.
Okay, super, thank you. Does anyone have any questions on that or any other questions?
yes, Howard.
Howard.
I have no problem if you put a number in there and you need a bit of contingency for accessories or ancillary wiggle room for approval, because that's what I would do. So if it's 287 and you need, and you don't think that 300 is enough, then you should make it 3, whatever, for 5 or 310, so that it fits your needs specifically, just in case.
Yeah,
Correct.
and
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, Michael, just be sure to put a line item in for that.
Right.
And then
Okay.
that way, the supplemental data tracks the total cost that will be reflected in our document.
Good point. Thank you.
I mean, normally a contingency on an IT project, in my world anyway, would be between 10 and 15% would be what you would load in the beginning as a contingency. So if it's 300, yeah.
Yeah.
Put 30 or 40. But
Yeah, it's not wrong to add the contingency.
No.
Okay, So, that was actually turned out to be a good discussion. We determined that this is gonna be, likely lower cost. Okay, any other follow-ups from Michael on those? And, now we'll just quickly look at, Michael, for out years, is there anything in particular for, let's not go too far out, for FY 27 that you want to spotlight before we move on to water?
Real quick, FY 27, there is the potential of a phone project coming up. That has to do, we'll be taking over phones from public safety. Now, currently, I may be able to get that in under $50,000, and I may be able to put it in my operating for next year. And so we may not end up talking about it, but I don't have a final quote. We're still going through the exact number of equipment that needs to go in, so that number may end up creeping above 50. So you'll hear from me next year on that. And then the other line was, 1 second, I had one more. Give me.
I think the big ticket was the digital updating of the GIS.
Well, right, and that one though shouldn't come up for a couple of years. That is about, I believe, every 5 years or so that comes up, and then there's just a minor update that happens I believe on that 5th year, but the actual GIS stuff happens I think every 8 or so years is the actual full scan that takes place.
So the 300 there, you might just want to look at to see if that gets pushed out another year. It's in for FY 27.
Okay.
Okay, any questions on out years as you see them?
No, I just want to compliment you on your blackboard and the multiple colors of chalk or whatever you use. Very nice.
It's a marker. It's actually brand new. It got hung up on Monday, so.
It's very impressive.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I do have one last capital thing that may be coming up next year. It was not put in for this year. It's network infrastructure. I currently have, every other year we ask for network infrastructure. I already have some money, which is why it was not asked for this year, but we are using it over the course of this year. So expect a request to come in next year for it. So, and that should be around, I believe it's around 50,000 to maybe 60,000 that I asked for. So,
I think that's typically 50.
yeah.
Okay. Well, inflation is rearing its ugly head.
Exactly.
Okay, hey, Michael, we appreciate your time. We'll look forward to those updates, and why don't we just anticipate that we'll have them before the end of September?
That's the goal.
Fair enough.
Thanks.
All right.
Michael.
All right. Awesome. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks again. Hey, Mark.
Hey, how you doing?
We're getting there. How you doing?
Hey, Mark.
Good. I'm good. I'm really good.
Good. Beats the alternative, right?
Yeah. Hey, we're almost through it. We're almost through it.
All right, so we got you down for distribution system improvements.
Yes, it's actually like my last 3 projects. Totally never been on a capital plan. It's all PFAS
You can put-
contamination related.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or Rory.
Um,
Go under Rory.
It's a 4.7 million.
Right
I
there.
thought I attached a sheet that had the roads and the feet to get the number. We're talking Arkansas Avenue, Long Pond, Pine Grove, Chatham Road, Miller's Lane, Ramus Court, and that's where the list stops for this capital year that we're talking about. There is a much bigger list. These are all roads that have private wells that have been contaminated with PFAS, and it's above drinking water standards. It's not safe to drink. So I have to push off other capital improvement projects that I had planned, and extend the water mains out to these areas.
okay. Questions for Mark on this one?
Yeah, when you
Howard?
give us I guess you're giving us documentation to supplement this for the total with real estimates or with a breakdown of your estimates. It would be very.
Yeah, so
Oh,
I think what I hope it got attached. I take our most recent price per foot bid, which was actually Tom's Way that is contaminated with PFAS, and we just ran a water main down Tom's Way off of Old South. And it was about $310 a foot for that. So for this, since it's 2 years out, we're projecting, after talking to some contractors that usually bid on our projects and general census from American Water Works, the guesstimate with the Nantucket price compared to everybody else for 2026 is going to be about $340 a foot. There's 9,290 feet of pipe in that street list. We got a design cost of $150,000. OPM oversight and inspection for $750, and I always throw in a 20% contingency, which is about $640,000. So when you take the $3.2 million for the pipe design, the engineering oversight and contingency, I come up with a $4.7 million for a total project to get water into those streets.
Gotcha. Howard, your question was about the overall total too, but and I think you're looking at the total cost in the introduction.
Yeah.
So that's a remnant of the discussion
It
we had
is.
with Sue earlier.
I guess, in your description, it would be nice to know, I didn't see how many feet. You know, it'd be kind of nice.
Right. Maybe I thought I attached some stuff. Maybe it didn't go through.
Yeah.
I usually do.
No,
Um,
it's there. Howard, can you not see it? It's an Excel document if you open it.
I can't open it.
So you've got to set your browser to download maybe, because it's not opening an Excel spreadsheet. It's an Excel spreadsheet, so it's not opening it within the browser environment, so you got to download it.
I see it here now. Yeah, I see the numbers, yeah. I didn't see it before because I couldn't open it, so pardon me. And I was,
And I usually, if I would have got, I requested bid canvas sheets, what we call them, from our last 3 bids that we have developed. And I'm waiting, so the next year's capital, I'll have Matacasham Valley, west of the airport, Monahans, that whole project, Tom's Way, that whole project. And we put it into a bid canvas format. And then that allows me to adjust future costs to what we think they're going to be. And you can see past projects and how we're coming up with these numbers of like 340 a foot to do a pipe project in 2026.
everything that's on your attachment is what I was gonna ask, so thank you very much.
Yep.
Anything else? John,
No, I'm good.
Jill? No, okay.
Oh,
Mark,
actually, I just had one bigger question, just.
Yep.
Mark, how do you decide what the priority is? Do they have a higher level of PFAS than other wells, or?
Yeah, so when we ran the wells out, when we ran the water main, 2 years ago out to Matacasham Valley Road, those people were few of them were like 200 parts, so it's pretty, anything over 200 or 300 parts, I don't even think they like you bathing in it, so we had to put that one first. Then we went west of the airport to Monahans, Skyline, Orkawa. Those people were not all over the limit, but all right around and close to the limit. And if they were over, it was over by 10 or 20 parts. Still not good. And in the middle of that project, that's when they discovered Tom's Way was in the several hundred parts, higher than the airport, higher than Matacasham Valley. I don't know where it's coming from on Tom's Way. In the middle of nowhere, it's always been woods and houses. They had some that were 700, 800 parts, so we literally left west of the airport project on Monahans to go over and start Tom's Way. We just finished both of those this spring. And now I look at this list, and I listed them, they're almost in order of contamination level. So Arkansas has had the most hits. And I kind of did it that way too. I factor in how many homes are on that road and how many people are affected. And I'm not saying because Miller's Lane and Ramus Court only have small number of homes on them and they're not important. But I think it's more important for us to get the capital funding approval from you guys and go get the most bang for the buck. And if I can help 50 people on Arkansas with the first go, then that's the place to start. And I don't know if it's the right way to do it or the wrong way to do it. This is all new to us. That's just the way we've been doing it.
Yeah, no, and no judgment for me. I was curious. I'm sure it's hard to prioritize because a lot of people have it in their water.
This
and
isn't
also-
going to end for me.
No,
my
but aren't there new
whole
PFAS? Sorry.
my whole capital plan is, that whole thing I had all set up with all the, it's gone. With all the DEPs coming down in September and drilling more wells all around looking for PFAS, they're gonna start looking more in Mattocket out by the dump. It's gonna continue to grow, and eventually, I mean, I'm gonna run out of permit, pump the water. I'm gonna be over my permit, and I'll have to stop. But I see for the next foreseeable, maybe 4, 5, 6 years, it's gonna be me extending pipe to places that people need the safe drinking water.
And aren't there more PFAS, I mean, coming online? Like, aren't there new ones every day? Aren't there like thousands of them that you, or at least
There's over
hundreds?
8,000 compounds, and they're finding hundreds every week, right? So it's just growing and
So how
growing.
does DEP, they're the ones that are telling you what to test for. Do you get a new one from them quarterly or a handful,
No, so
list of them, or
we-
what?
in October, we're doing a thing called an unregulated contaminant sampling, where they'll look at everything that they don't regulate and see what all the water departments and public water supplies have. So if there'll be if there's new PFAS compounds that are being detected in multiple places in New England or in Massachusetts, they'll start adding those to our list of ones we have to look at. Right now, we look at six of the compounds, 6 of the 8,000 or so compounds. That's it. And there are thousands of them, so this is just going to continue to grow.
Yeah. But you've kind of got to wait for the state, right?
I do have to wait for the state. We do sample for above and beyond, because like when a contaminated thing like on Tom's Way, that's right across the street from my wells. And I'm so nervous that I almost threw it in for 2026, but I didn't. Don't be surprised for 2027 if I have a huge capital request for some type of treatment plant here at Wannacomet.
Wow.
It's 600 feet away from our pumping wells, Tom's Way.
Right. No, it's right there.
So it's across the street.
And
When
so
I
you're
started,
able,
I've
I'm
already started to ballpark those prices, and you're talking, so Barnstable had to do it because of Barnstable Airport contamination, and those guys were probably, I don't know, 17 or 18 million dollars into a PFAS treatment. And with the Nantucket factor of about 150 to 160% of off island, I mean, you're talking over 20 million. I need one in each well. So if I got it across the street here from Tom's Way, I have 3 wells behind my office. You're looking at like 50, 60 million dollars in treatment if it gets here.
And Mark, this could be 2027, you said?
Maybe. I've turned wells off, so I wouldn't pull it in. So we're running kind of lean on the system, and it's putting a lot of stress on the system. And that, I don't know if any of you have noticed, or if you're on town water, there might have been a few instances during the week, throughout the summer, each week, where the water pressure wasn't that great, because I've been turning the wells off. So I don't want to pull that stuff across the street. I don't want to pull it over to the wells. So I have the well closest to Tom's Way is off. I haven't run it all summer. I'm not worried about pulling it across the street.
I mean, Mark, if you had to put a percentage factor on the possibility of you wanting this and us having to do this in 2027, what would that be? Is it like a 50-50, or is it a lot higher than that?
No, I don't think it's that high yet, because I have that off. If I can get approval from Mass DEP, finish the new well that I'm installing out at North Pasture, which is much further away, and no worries, I could literally replace production with that new well. It's in the approval process at Mass DEP right now. Actually, for 2025 capital last year, I put in the few million to build the new pump station, and I can't do that until I get approval to install that new well, because the Commonwealth owns the resource. The town of Nantucket doesn't, so I have to get permission from them to pump water. they are well aware of all the contamination around the well field and the contamination on the island. So I hope that speeds up the process, and I'm hoping by 2027 that I have my pump station built and my new well out at North Pasture, our North Pasture site, which is out by the Girl Scout camp, past Don Allen on Pulpus Road, where the water tower is. I hope that well is up and running, and I can isolate these wells right here behind my office that are closest to Tom's Way.
Anything else,
If
John?
that's not the case, then, you know, I can't go forever without running the wells back there. We just won't make it as we're building more and more, and I'm adding hundreds of customers. I mean, I just added all of Matacasham Valley, I think, and all of west of the airport was close to 200 customers. Each customer demands water every day, so my pumps have to pump more to meet that demand. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. I got to bring the water out to these people to supply them with clean water, but for me to do that, I have to pump more water. If I pump more water, I might bring the contamination to me.
We're very fortunate we got you there, my friend.
I'm trying, but it's like a balancing act.
Thanks, Mark.
Hey, Mark, so I think a couple of things. One, primarily out years. Your PFAS is clearly disrupting your regular capital operation.
Yes. Yes.
It'd be beneficial for us, you know, I'm sure you're aware of it, I'm sure the Water Commission, but it would be beneficial for us to see a list of those projects with, even if they're placeholder numbers of $1.
Okay.
And then we can, you know, ask questions about them as we go. So I'd ask that you know, in your spare time, you work that in. If there is a particular project that you think is gonna be of a very significant amount of money, like you're just talking about adjacent to the shop there, it'd be beneficial to include some, you know, industry extrapolation of price, including
Yep.
the Nantucket factor. I think that's gonna be really important for capital program reviewing, out years and anticipating costs. And, you know, as you know, PFAS is a pretty hot topic. And, it's probably gonna be beneficial to start to get these numbers out there to people. I understand there may be a reason or a rationale with respect to not having a full handle on them as a reason to not post numbers. But I think for our process, we need to start to get a handle on the potential relative expense over the next 10 years or even the next 5 years. And
Okay.
that goes for
I can definitely include that in
Okay.
the next sheet markup. I'll put in, like I have in the past, a written summary with some graphs and charts and prices from other towns. And, you know, we're not the only ones dealing with this, so people are getting creative. There is some government funding available. Hopefully we would qualify for some of that. A lot of times when I tried to get money for west of the airport, we were told we were gonna get it. And then they decide there are other communities that aren't as privileged as Nantucket, and we don't get the money. Even though we do qualify, I don't think we're gonna be very successful in getting grant money.
Gotcha. The other aspect of that, Mark, would be helpful is water main replacements, water main extensions. Go ahead and put those in the out years for the next 5 years, so we have an idea of what the kind of conflict is or needs relative to the amount of money that can be spent on projects.
Okay.
Wanacon and overall within the town. Just to give that would be a helpful metric and gives us some direction.
Right. I took those off, Steve, because I didn't know if you guys wanted to see. I know it makes sense now that you say that. I should have left them on there, and if I add the potential for the PFAS impacted areas, then you would get an overall number of what the number could possibly be at its biggest.
Yeah, and you've always been great with it. I know you got the numbers, so it's just a matter of, you know, reminding you to please communicate them to us. For me, where we're going is much more important than where we were, so those are important numbers. I wanted to quick other things. One, I think, can you just speak briefly to the decision-making group? In particular PFAS? I mean, my understanding is, you're our consummate professional. The Water Commission weighs in on policy, and there's some involvement from town admin, because the PFAS affects town overall. Is that generally the way it is, or is there a different process involved? I think it's good information for the people have at home, people who watch the YouTube, so I thought I'd ask.
Right. So the Board of Health kind of controls the private well sampling for PFAS. There is a group that I am part of, that meet weekly. It's actually every Thursday. Every Thursday we meet to talk about PFAS with our consultants. The town, and I think Nantucket in general is way ahead of other communities. They've done a great job between here at Wannacomet sampling for PFAS back in 2012 before it was even required to sample for PFAS. We were looking for it because I would rather know than wait to find out. The town got consultants involved in looking at the island PFAS cycle and where it's generated, how it's moved around, and we're doing really good. And I think it's a concerted, kind of a group effort from different individuals and different groups that are kind of spearheading this whole thing. When it comes to the public water supply stuff, obviously that comes through me and the commission, and we're controlled by Mass DEP and what we have to do with that.
Gotcha. Thank you. Last one is just a quick aspect of the testing. Are you guys recording the depth of wells or whomever's requiring the testing, the Board of Health, Like,
Yes.
What that wellhead depth is?
Yes. So when we get the depth of wells, you mean when we find contamination in a well?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yes. So we're doing that, and what we're finding is the deeper wells seem to be a little bit less impacted, even though PFAS is a compound that's kind of lazy. Like if it's on a couch, it's going to spread out. It's not a floater or a sinker. It just kind of goes everywhere. But right now, the data is kind of showing that it's staying in the upper levels of the aquifer. There is some down low, but not as high a concentration. We're tracking all of that. I currently working with a group of guys to finish our hydraulic model, which will incorporate a fate and transport portion where I can put in these plumes and this information about PFAS and groundwater flow direction and find out where it's going to go and how my pumping from one of my public water supply wells will affect that plume.
That's great information, Mark. That's exactly where I was going with it. I was kind of curious, obviously in a very real sense right now, it's firefighting, but these are forever chemicals. So forecasting is going to be very important, and the hydrological modeling, 3D mapping is probably going to be a really great resource. I had confidence you were probably doing it, but hearing it from you makes me feel better.
It should be done in a couple of months. I think it's done, and please, once we get it up and running, any of you guys feel free to let me know, and we can come in and I'll show you a demo.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's not gonna help us stop it, but it is in the sense of maybe pumping restrictions in certain areas at certain times. But
right.
It's gonna help us to anticipate where we're going as a community with respect to costs. So that's really good information. Thank you.
Hey, Mark, it's
Yep.
John. It's John again.
Yep.
I'd like to get some time with you, if I may, with a different hat on, with my planning board hat and my MPEDC hat, because listening to you talk today is really, really good information. But we're in the process of updating the town master plan.
Yep.
The EDC is getting a lot more serious about long-range planning. And I'm kind of feeling like clean water is up there, in my view anyway, with affordable housing. This is something we don't have a choice about. So we we should be really understanding from you what this means for, our strategic plan for the town and for the next 15 years, because that's what it is. It's updated every 15 years. So if I may, I'd love to come over and, talk a bit more about that.
Anytime, anytime.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Mark. Any other questions for Mark at this point? No? All right, we'll cut you free, Mark. If you would.
Okay,
If you wouldn't mind, just updating the list.
sure.
Talk with Sue, just as, your list of current projects and any others that you have, and maybe just putting a placeholder $1 mark. So we know which years, for instance, you're anticipating you would be looking at having expenditures. And then maybe,
Okay.
we can work on filling in some numbers.
Okay, yeah, I can put that together.
Okay, we appreciate it. Thank you very much.
All right, see you guys.
Take care. Let's see, not just IT and water, elections of officers, we're gonna hold off till we have full membership. Liaison assignments, does anyone have any, Sue, do you happen to have that email that? Did I send you the email with you sent me an email with a list of departments, and I think I sent it out to the membership.
You do.
Yeah, do you guys have a particular department you might want to be involved with liaison? Jill, you got anything?
Yeah, I like to do water and sewer if I can.
Jill, water and sewer.
Are we,
Do I need to do a third one or?
are we tag teaming or not?
You can if you want. I have a feeling we're gonna, we might need to spread out to cover our bases, but why don't we see what your people are interested in and we'll go from there.
So I would do public works and then there's Senate, the landfill.
So Howard, solid waste and DPW. John, anything?
I would have been interested in water also.
Or, would you mind if I could, I didn't flip that because my emails. Or my email. So. Natural resources. I could pick up natural resources.
I don't mind doing that one, Stephen, if you want.
Okay. So Jill, Stephen, and we just, that'd be a little backfilling maybe on the grants, since Jeff had been in, but that would be interesting.
Yeah,
Why don't I update this list? I'll send it out
Yeah.
and we'll ask the other members to jump in. There's still airport and DPW is a pretty big, between facilities, transportation and, general.
Right.
the Parks and Rec falls under facilities on that list, right?
I believe so. Yeah. Sue, is that correct?
I don't recall what my list looked like because I did that right away Thursday. Parks is a separate division under DPW. So, but on the list I gave to you, Stephen, it might have been DPW, might have been lumped all together. I don't think I separated it into the divisions.
You had it into transportation and facilities. So that's why I wasn't sure which one that is, but
It'll be, I presume it'll be under,
It should have it up its own.
okay, well, maybe you can shoot me an email on that one before I.
if that's its own thing, I'd like to do that. Meet with Drew and Charlie.
Jill on Parks and Rec.
You know why they weren't on the list is because Parks didn't, I think the criteria we used was over 1 million, correct? For a department you wanted to meet with was over $1 million in Parks.
Oh, right. Yeah, you did do that. That's
Yeah.
right.
Parks only has one request and that it was well under the $1 million. So that was why, yeah, they have a request for 96,000.
Jill, you still want to dip your foot in that or you're good?
If we don't need to meet with him, I kind of want to know what he's planning in the future. You know, we haven't really seen as much for some of the other areas of the island, but he's got a lot on his plate. I know that. So he.
Yeah, you know, what we can do is we can pick up with him, looking at out years and, if he doesn't have much bulk there, we can have that discussion.
Yeah.
I'm requested to be a pretty light presentation. Okay.
I just think it'd be good for us to figure out what they're doing versus like, what's the land bank doing on recreation, you know, based on what we know, and it'd be good for us to know, right?
And that actually would be good one-on-one time. So I'm gonna put you down on, Parks and Rec, and then you guys can work out details on schedule. I'll get a list out to everyone and ask people to, get back to me for the next meeting. So Sue, we'll please carry, did we carry that over to, on the agenda, liaisons? Okay.
I can add it back.
Okay, super. Rory's, can we, so you mind giving me an update? When do we anticipate the line item enhancements and the group values to go in? Will it be by next week so we can have a Rory session?
Yes, and I have to apologize, my internet keeps going in and out, so you guys are breaking up. They should, when we had the conversation with them an hour before this meeting, they indicated that it's test environment for Brian and I they're gonna send it to us to look at, so it should be ready next week. Everything as far as the Rory changes will be next week.
Okay, and, please be so kind, shoot me a link to for the test. Because having drawn it up, I'm gonna know what we were looking for, and if there's a discrepancy, I'd rather identify it beforehand than later.
Sure.
Okay, thank you so much. So next week will be a Rory workshop. We're gonna get caught up on our Rorys. That'll be good. Report writing work group, I wanna hold till we have a membership, committee reports. Still anything from FinCom to mention?
No, we haven't met. I think we'll meet right before a special town meeting, but we haven't had a meeting since you and I've been meeting here.
Gotcha. John, anything from NPDEDC?
No.
And you already kind of spotlighted that you guys will be doing longer range planning, so that'll start to involve some capital. That's good to know. Date of next meeting is Thursday, September 5th at 3 p.m. And with that said, how about a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, Jill, on your motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Howard, and I'm an aye. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
You'll fill the report.